we're going to be going over the starting rotation right here, and I'm just going to label you guys my top six. And we're going to talk about 7 guys overall. If you guys have any other guys you want to bring up, but I'll go through mine 1 through 6. Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Chris Paddack, Adrian Morejon, and Mackenzie Gore. Chase, what are yours?
I have Darvish ahead of Snell, and then I have Morejon in front of. Did you say Morejon then Gore or Gore then Morejon?
I had Morejon before Gore. I had Gore at 6.
I want to put Gore at 6, but we'll see. It's going to come out clearer more tomorrow. Gore is, I think, starting his last spring training game tomorrow, and I think this is his make or break. If he struggles, I think he gets the 6th spot, but if he doesn't and he shows that he's lights out, I think he wins the 6th spot over Morejon.
Okay, that makes sense. Isaac, do you think? So I'll just start. We can start off with the top guys. Do you think that Blake Snell is the number 1 for the Padres, or Yu Darvish, or hey, maybe you have Joe Musgrove in there? I don't know.
Right. I actually, mine's pretty similar to yours, man. I got Blake Snell as our number 1. Then I got Darvish, and then I kind of try to think from the Padres perspective here. I got Chris Paddack at 3 because I don't know why. It just seems like the Padres love him. Like, I mean, if we were to do a poll in the comments and ask people, how many of you thought Chris Paddack was going to be our game 1 wildcard starter? I want to say maybe 5% would say I did, right? So none of us thought he would be the starter, but Jace Tingler let him start. We saw he got rocked. So it seems like they like him a lot. So I put him at 3. I would put him at 4 if I was Tingler, but I put him at 3, thinking from Tingler's perspective. So then I got Joe Musgrove at the 4. And then I think I put Morejon at 5 because he seems the most pro ready. He does have the most experience in the pros. And then I also have Mackenzie Gore at 6.
I like it. So it's pretty close to me. And we all have Weathers out of the top 6. But let's start off with Blake Snell and Yu Darvish. I think they can both be talked about side by side just because I think we would all agree those are the clear-cut 1 and 2 guys. So this spring, they both have 0 ERAs. Now, Snell has only pitched 9 innings, and Darvish has only pitched 5 innings. So they haven't got to see a lot of time, but they flourished. They've just shown, hey, we traded for these guys. These are 1 and 2 this next year. I think that's about where I'm on them. But Chase, anything else you want to talk about them?
The only thing I would consider is, it may take a little while for this pitching rotation to settle down with the new catchers. They've really only pitched with some of these guys throughout spring training. So if we see them struggle a little bit in the season, it just could be rust or them getting more comfortable with who is ever catching at the time, because we are still not for sure who's going to be the starting catcher between Caratini and Capusano.
I think one thing I wanted to add was that no matter if it's Chase's way with the 1 or 2 or mine and Matt's way, there is really no right or wrong. They're both they're both ace type pitchers. They're both going to be great opening day starters. They're both going to be really great for our organization. I mean, we saw Darvish has like 11 pitches. That's pretty gnarly. I mean, I've never heard of that. And then Blake Snell's we saw what he did in the World Series. He's just a dominant pitcher, 2018 Cy Young winner. So no matter who's starting on the bump opening day, I'm going to feel very confident.
All right, so let's get into Joe Musgrove then. Chase, I'll let you start. I'll get into how he's pitched this spring, but do you want to talk about how he's kind of adjusted?
He's starting not to rely on like a couple pitches that he was kind of forced to throw in Pittsburgh. So he's sort of coming into his own. He's starting to use his off speed more like Lamet, where he's going to use it a little bit more to get those strikes, so get ahead of batters and strike them out. Because whenever he uses his fastball a little too much, hitters will just sit on it and knock it out. He doesn't have the most movement. It kind of drops a little bit more than other pitchers. So they'll normally go hunting for that compared to the off speed. So he's starting to pitch backwards, which is an amazing adjustment. And that's just why he had an amazing K-9 last year. So if he keeps those same adjustments and starts getting a little bit more improvement on his fastball, we could see a real breakout potential and probably front of line starter pitcher out of Musgrove this year.
a lot of reports that I saw when we got him was just talking about how underrated he was. Because, I mean, he played for the Pirates. Nobody talks about the Pirates, right? I mean, so coming to us, as an underrated pitcher, he came home. San Diego County is his home, so he's pitching for his hometown. And I forgot who I was talking about this with. Somebody asked me, who do you think would be the wild card pitcher? And some scenario went in my head where I was like, dude, what if Joe Musgrove goes crazy this year and then suddenly we see him pitching the wild card game? Like, wouldn't that be amazing? But that's the kind of underrated potential that Joe Musgrove has, is that we could see a real breakout year from him. I think he's going to be a great number 3 or number 4, whatever he is. And I'm really excited to see what potential and what value he brings to our team.
We brought up how Joe Musgrove is making some of these adjustments and whatnot. Also, Isaac, I like that you bring up that he could be the wild card guy, because, I mean, we've seen these guys that come from the Pirates, and it's like, oh yeah, they just, they did this, they did these adjustments, and then, oh boom, he became Garrett Cole, like the Garrett Cole that we all know. And so maybe Joe Musgrove doesn't become Garrett Cole. That's all right. But we might see him improve a lot. However, this spring training, he pitched 13 innings, which is, I think, the highest of any of these guys that we brought up here. And he had a 4.85 ERA, and people hit 283 off of him. So he struggled a little bit. I think it's worth mentioning. Don't think it's going to lead into the regular season or be an issue. Maybe early on he's not super dominant, but he just continues to get better as the season goes on. That's fine. But I just figure we should mention that, hey, he hasn't really been dominant this spring, but there's a reason for that. And that's how I feel with him. But the next guy that I think, well, 2 of us had him at 4. Isaac, you wanted to have him at 4, but you think that he's going to be 3. That's Chris Paddack. Chris Paddack has also struggled. Now, mostly he struggled in his last outing where he just got destroyed. But overall in spring, he has a 5.19 ERA, a 1.5 whip, which is not good, and he's pitched 8.2 innings. So he hasn't pitched a lot. But Chase, why has Chris Paddack struggled so far?
So we kind of saw it last season and maybe the end of his rookie year. He only really throws 2 pitches. And if they see the fastball and it's straight and they're like, okay, I know the timing of this, I can just sit and adjust to the changeup when he throws it and hunt that instead. If that fastball's on a location where I want, I can either sit and wait for the changeup to be a mistake, let it go for a ball, or go hunt a fastball. Because realistically, I was watching that last outing. I think he threw maybe 2 or 3 curveballs. They looked a lot better than they did last year, but it still shows that he's not completely comfortable with it. But these are the games where he should be trying to bump out those curveballs to get it ready for the regular season, and we just haven't seen that. So he's going to struggle unless he really develops that 3rd pitch. If not, he might just end up being a bullpen arm. I hate to say it, but 2 pitchers that are starters do not last.
Yeah, and I think Shay's nailed it pretty much. When you only throw 2 pitches, I mean, you're able to throw 2 pitches when you're 10 or 12 years old. Maybe not as good as Paddack, but normally that's when you're able to throw 2 pitches. By now, he should have developed another pitch that's at least decent. We saw he tried to develop another pitch last year, and I remember one at bat. I forgot who it was. They took it 600 feet. That curveball, oh my God, it was devastating. I think another problem is that, not to be mean, but he's going to Craig Stammen to learn deception, something like that. So, but
dude, I totally forgot about that. You mentioned that to me before. I totally forgot. He asked him, right? He asked him for advice.
Yeah, he's asking Craig Stammen for advice. Yeah, that's crazy. I know.
Did you guys end up reading that article?
A little bit. All I had to know was that he went to Craig Stammen.
So the whole main concept behind why he went for Craig Stammen's advice is then Craig Stammen practically told him, you have to throw every pitch with conviction. That was practically it.
I'm convinced Craig Stammen goes up there to get rocked. But like I was saying, I'm a huge Chris Paddack fan. I love Chris Paddack. I've loved Chris Paddack ever since he made his first start. So I don't want him to fail. But when you see that you only have 2 pitches and only one of them is really filthy, the changeup, I mean, you're asking to fail, especially when your fastball is so on and off. one day you're throwing in 98, another day you're throwing in 92. I remember he was throwing in 92 against the Dodgers. Oh, I don't think I remember a time where I was more mad at him, because how are you going to throw a 92-mile-an-hour fastball against the Dodgers? I remember Mookie hit like 2 or 3 bombs off him. So
That was the game where he got lit up, like really, really bad.
bad. So, I think finding some consistency in his pitches is going to be important as well.
He really needs to develop that third pitch, because it seems like because he doesn't have that third pitch, he doesn't have that third speed, and it's almost exclusively fastball changeup. It seems like it's taking away the dominance of his changeup, because people are ready for it. They're like, all right, you're either going to throw me a fastball. Your fastball's not super great, so I can live off that if you're just throwing fastballs, and I can kind of wait for the changeup. That's how it seems people are approaching him. And he hasn't been able, and it's not to say that he won't, but he hasn't been able to make those adjustments yet. And we could definitely see that coming, in the next couple of weeks even. But he's got to figure that out, and that's what's gonna, I think, make or break Chris Paddack. And if he's able to do that, even if he's able to improve his fastball, where it's a consistent, 95 to 98, not 92, and there's movement, and it's the true four seam, not the half four seam, two seam that he was talking about earlier this offseason. That's where we can see him become a true ace. Everyone thought he would be. I mean, he's a former top 10 prospect in the league. So I think that he's a very talented player. I mean, we all think that, but he's got to figure that out. So next is Adrian Morejon. This spring training, Morejon's looked really good, I think. He only has allowed a 3.38 ERA, 10 innings pitched, 11 Ks. And I think overall he's just looked like a really solid player. He kind of just how he's looked in the pros as well. I mean, he's just been really solid overall. I think that the big concerns with him is how much can he pitch in a game? Can he go out there and throw 7 innings like ever? Because I don't know if he can. But Chase, is that like your concern with him as well? And do you think he's the 5th starter?
No, I have 2 concerns with Morejon. He was doing good last year, but the games he started to struggle in is the games where he couldn't really throw his off speed for strikes, which we've seen this spring training that he has, and it's been a big improvement, and the reason why his strikeout numbers have gone up, and his home runs that he's allowed has kind of gone down. It's a really small sample size, but it's still important to notice. And the fact that we never really seen him go more than, I think, 4 innings. They always pull him after 3. And the reason I was telling you guys this, I think earlier this month or before, is when he was in the minor leagues and when he was a starter, he never really got over 90 innings to 100 innings. He could make those, 6, 7 innings, but he always had shoulder problems. And we saw that last year. He had that little shoulder injury that sidelined him for like a couple weeks, 3 weeks. He always gets those random injuries. So there's always that concern that if you let him go for such a long time, that it might happen again, which is why I keep advocating for the 6-man rotation, because we have a lot of these pitchers that, man, they're on the cusp of greatness, but we don't know necessarily if they can handle the full starter's load of 162 games.
Those concerns are absolutely warranted. Like Matt brought up, I definitely don't think he's a guy that can go 7 or 8 innings a game, or even occasionally. I definitely don't think he is that guy. I'm not saying he can be that guy, but it doesn't really seem like he is that guy. I think 4 or 5 innings for him tops. But in most of his outings last year, he looked really dominant. In spring training, he's looked dominant. But I think he's basically, to me, going to be an amazing bullpen arm. We talked about who can be our own version of Josh Hader when we bring up those Hader trades. I think it's Morejon. Well, it's either definitely Morejon or Weathers, but preferably I prefer Morejon. He's played a lot of pro ball already. He's shown success in pro ball. He has good stuff. He throws a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, if I remember correctly. So he's got good stuff, and those injury concerns are definitely warranted. And Chase's concerns about what was it, Chase? Like something about his off speeds, how they weren't very consistent, right?
Yeah, he can throw them really well. It's just they never really landed near the strike zone in some outings. It's very off and on.
Right. So those concerns are warranted this year. I think as time goes in the future, as he matures and grows older and is able to get more education with his pitches, I think it'll be a lot better for him. And I absolutely think Morejon's going to be an amazing arm for us to have for now and the future.
He's definitely looked really good when he's played in the MLB. And last year, late season and playoff time, he was a very good guy. He was one of the guys I was most confident when he was on the mound. And it was only for usually 2 innings at a time. But still, you come out there and you're like, that, yep, he's a very good pitcher. His stuff is nasty. And when he's on, it doesn't look like he's hittable. And so that's why I was thinking about this for him. Is he a guy where maybe they start with a 6-man rotation and he's the guy that they take out? Because I think that could happen. Why not have, like, say that they have Mackenzie Gore, and that is the 6th guy. So we'll talk about him in a minute here. But say that Mackenzie Gore is the 6th guy and he balls out and he looks really good, and Morejon does as well. But Mackenzie Gore is able to go 6-7 innings pretty consistently. And with Morejon, they're pretty much taking him out after 5 innings every time. And they're realizing, hey, he looks a lot better in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd than he does the 4th and the 5th. They could convert him to a long inning bullpen guy. And that doesn't mean like he's going to be pitching in meaningless games. He could come in 7-8 in some pivotal moments, I think. I think that that's how they could use him. And we talked about that with Josh Hader, how maybe he could kind of turn into that role for the Padres. I'm a big fan of that. And but I do think that starting him in a 6-man rotation to begin the year is a good way. I mean, I don't know. It's a kind of a tough way to transition him into the bullpen by not putting him in the bullpen from the start. But I do think it might help him just become a better player overall and just give him more experience. So that's why I like it. But there is also a side to me where I don't know if they should just what they should do. Maybe just find a role for him and stick to it. But I think that's just up in the air right now. I don't know. Do you guys think there's a point to like what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I an idea just popped into my head. I think I brought this up last year when they were trying to do it with Patino and Morejon, where they just kept, bumping them back and forth. If they decide to do a 5-man rotation and they see that only Morejon maybe can go 5 innings at max, why not use him as an opener for those 3 innings and then let Gore go the rest of the game? So both of them still make the roster. Both of them get MLB experience, and then you can be a little bit more flexible with Morejon. You can either let him start as an opener for those 3 innings and then let Gore go, or you can let Gore go, let him go as long as he can, and then throw Morejon in at the end of the game. So he gets, stretched out. If he's good enough to be that starter, they can move him and move Gore back down. If he's not doing that well, he can be that starter. Or Gore can be that starter, and he can turn into that multiple inning late guy that Hader is now.
I completely agree, Chase. That'd be pretty sick. I don't feel like I've seen that often, but that'd be amazing, having Morejon go 3 or 4 innings, then Gore go the rest of the game. Not only that, but they're both able to get their innings in. They're both able to get MLB experience, and for the long run, that's going to be helpful. I absolutely think Gore's going to end up better than Morejon. That's just, I love Mackenzie Gore, guys. I think right now Morejon is more beneficial and more. He has more value to this team because of his experience in the bigs.
I think that idea is probably most beneficial for the bullpen, because just imagine if every 6th day it's like, oh, the bullpen, if our 2 guys look good today, like the bullpen won't come out.
Yeah,
that's like kind of OP right there. No, I like that a lot. I think that's a really good idea. So for Mackenzie Gore, we haven't really talked about him that much. Obviously, top 5 prospect in the league, ton of hype around him. He's looked good this spring. 6 innings pitched so far. We're recording this on Monday night, by the way. He's pitching Tuesday, right?
Yeah, he's pitching tomorrow.
So I think this episode will be out on Wednesday, so we won't have seen his start Tuesday. Let's assume he has a good start. So hopefully I don't jinx that. But he has a 3 ERA, pitched 6 innings this spring, 8 strikeouts. He's looked pretty good. I think he's earned that 6th spot over Ryan Weathers. And I'll go over Weather stats here because we can kind of discuss the two, because I think these are the 2 guys that are fighting for that 6th spot. And also, I don't know if I've mentioned this in the segment. We're not talking about Dinelson Lamet in here because we're assuming that he's not going to be he's going to be on the injured list to start the season. So that's why he's not on here. Obviously, he's a top 3-4 guy, I think, pretty consistently for every Padres fan. It should be. But Ryan Weathers this spring, he's allowed a 316 average, 6.3 ERA in 10 innings pitched. So he's had more time out there, and he just hasn't looked as good. He's struggled a little bit more. So I think Gore's won that spot because Mackenzie Gore, he has a lot more hype for him. I do like Ryan Weathers a lot. Mackenzie Gore has better stuff. He has a lot more potential, and he is pitching better right now. It's time for him to come up. It's time for the Padres to go, hey, we don't have Dinelson Lamet to start the year, but you know who we're going to put in? We're going to put in Mackenzie Gore, who's better than Dinelson Lamet. I think that's the bold move. We saw them do that with Tatis. They got to do it with Mackenzie Gore. So I'm all for it. Put him in. Let him start that 6th day. Maybe don't even have him on the roster and then do like the surprise. Like, oh, hey, we're doing a 6-man rotation. That's what I want to see.
Absolutely. The only thing is I think both Weathers and Gore have just really struggled with location of their fastball. Early on in spring training, I think Gore's first couple of games, I think his first game, you saw him, he kind of walked a few people to start off the game, and then he struck everybody out. Or he struck out everybody in the first inning and then kind of walked or kind of just let people hit his fastball because he wasn't locating right away. It's just that little inconsistency. If he can get his fastball wherever he wants or just not walk anybody, he's going to be really lethal. And this start tomorrow, I think, is the make or break point for Gore. If he does really well tomorrow, I think he's on the team. If he does okay, maybe he lets up like a run or two. I'd say 2 runs. Now, I still think he makes it, but he might get put into that like 6-man role where, he might just get dropped to the minor leagues when Lamet comes back. And if he does bad, I don't think he makes the roster at all. That's my bold prediction.
It was against the White Sox. I watched Mackenzie Gore pitch. I want to say it was against the White Sox, and my dad saw him in his first start in spring training. And one thing that we both really noticed is that, like Chase said, he has had a lot of difficulties with controlling his pitches, with pitch location. There'd be like fastballs that he would spike in the dirt. There was a fastball that almost flew over Campusano's head. Curveballs in the dirt. But when he was hitting his spots, when he was around the zone, it was dominant. Like all of his stuff, his curveball, his fastball, everything was so dominant. He just, if he gets his location down, whether it's mid-season, beginning of the season, end of the season, we're going to see what we've been waiting for. We're going to see what the hype was about, because he can be that kind of pitcher that we're thinking. Even through all the acquisitions we made, I still think he's going to be our ace. And he does have the stuff. He has very dominant stuff. And like Chase said, with both Weathers and Gore, I think Weathers has probably had a little bit better pitch location. I saw him against the Dodgers. He had like around 5 or 6 strikeouts, but in the 3rd inning, they lit him up pretty bad. And but that's okay. He's a young arm. That's the best team in baseball. They had almost all their starters in. And but I do have a lot more confidence in Gore as our 6th man rather than Ryan Weathers, who I think would be a great bullpen arm.
That's going to pretty much wrap it up for this episode. So those are our 6 guys: Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Chris Paddack, Adrian Morejon, and Mackenzie Gore. And this is because there's no Dinelson Lamet and there's no Mike Clevenger right now for the San Diego Padres. Also, I think we all pretty much agree that Ryan Weathers is probably on the outside looking in, unless Mackenzie Gore struggles tomorrow. So we'll see how he plays. Hopefully he goes out there and he's just lights out. But one more thing before we take off, I wanted to just float this idea. I saw some people advocating that, hey, one of the reasons Mackenzie Gore, like, he might need some help early on in his career, it's going to hurt a lot that Austin Nola's gone. Do you think if he's the 6th guy, you have Caratini, you make sure that Caratini catches for him every time he's out there? Because I think that's something that is it's just smart, in my opinion. You'd rather have him have that veteran catcher, one that's been known to be a fantastic defensive catcher and a really good game caller. I think that you should have Caratini behind the plate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a knock on Campusano. Campusano is just a little bit younger. He doesn't have any major league experience, or he's caught a game. I wouldn't really call that a lot of experience calling in the MLB. Caratini would be the perfect guy. He kind of helped Yu Darvish turn around his career, so why not let him deal with the young arms?
I completely agree with you guys. Caratini is an amazing defensive catcher. He's Yu Darvish's personal catcher. But I think something bold that I would propose is maybe not to start, but soon enough you have Campusano catch all his games, because it seems like Mackenzie Gore is our pitcher of the future, while Campusano's our catcher of the future. So we're going to be looking at them for hopefully years and years and years and years and years. And I think, getting their chemistry, and I'm sure they got chemistry through the minor leagues. And but I think getting them chemistry in the big league, getting them both adapted at the same time with each other is going to be, I think that'd be pretty cool to see. And I think that'd be an interesting thing to see.
Have their paths crossed? Was it in AA that they played together?
Either single A or double A. I don't know if Compy caught Gore in double A.
Yeah. But either way, I do think that's a good point. I do think that you have to see him. I mean, you want to see that combo because you expect that to be your starting catcher and hopefully your number 1 or 2 pitcher. So I do think that's important. I also wonder how long until that's, hey, we're transitioning, where Campo's catching Mackenzie Gore every single night. So that's I wonder how long that takes. But that's going to do it for today. If you like this video, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Turn on notifications. We post about 3 to 4 times a week. And during the regular season, we're going to be posting a recap, a preview, and then probably like 1 to 2 additional segments throughout the week. I don't really know how we'll do it, just because it'll kind of just depend on the Padres news. Oh, hey, look, this guy's super hot. Oh, this guy's slumping. We'll talk about stuff like that, talk about injuries, possible trades, hopefully trades that happen that put the Padres in a better chance to win the World Series. But that's going to do it for today. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will be back with you guys soon.